All right, let's dive right into our first topic. Understanding the fundamental concept of the greenhouse effect and how it contributes to the warming of Earth. The greenhouse effect, simply put, is a natural process that warms the Earth's surface. Think of a greenhouse. It's designed to trap heat, right? Well, our planet does something similar, but instead of glass, it has gases in the atmosphere that trap heat from the sun. Now, these gases, often referred to as greenhouse gases, include water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and ozone. They absorb heat that would normally escape back into space and re-emit it in all directions, including back down towards the surface of the Earth. This helps keep our planet warm enough to sustain life as we know it.
Pretty cool, huh?
But wait,
Hmm.
It's not all sunshine and roses.
while the greenhouse effect is crucial for our survival, an excess of these greenhouse gases can lead to too much heat being trapped, causing the Earth's average temperature to rise. This is what's known as global warming. So the greenhouse effect is a natural process and essential for our survival. But when it gets out of balance, as it is currently, it can lead to global warming and a host of climate-related issues. Kind of like eating chocolate, isn't it? A little bit is great, but too much, well, you get the idea. In our next section, we'll discuss how human activities are throwing this crucial balance out of whack. But for now, just remember, the greenhouse effect is like Earth's natural blanket, keeping us warm and cozy. But like any blanket, too many layers can make things uncomfortably hot. Moving on, let's shift our attention to the role of human activities in enhancing the greenhouse effect and accelerating global warming. So we've established that the greenhouse effect is natural and necessary. But here's the catch. Human actions are dramatically increasing the concentration of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. And well, you know what that does.
It's like adding extra blankets on a warm night.
Not exactly comfortable, is it? The main culprit is our use of fossil fuels. When we burn coal, oil, or gas for energy, we release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And carbon dioxide, as you may recall, is one of those pesky greenhouse gases that traps heat. And we're not talking small amounts here. We're burning fossil fuels on a massive scale for everything from electricity and heating to transportation and industry. Then there's deforestation. Trees absorb carbon dioxide, helping to regulate the climate. But when we cut down or burn forests for agriculture or other land uses, well, not only are we removing these helpful carbon sinks, but we're also releasing all the carbon stored in those trees back into the atmosphere. Double whammy, right? Other human activities like industrial processes, waste disposal, and certain types of agriculture also contribute to the problem by releasing other potent greenhouse gases like methane and nitrous oxide. Now, all these extra greenhouse gases trap more heat and raise the Earth's average temperature. In other words, we're turning up the thermostat on our planet. And that, in a nutshell, is how our actions are accelerating global warming. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. Our actions got us into this mess, and our actions can help get us out of it. Stay tuned as we explore the impacts of global warming and what we can do about it. But for now, remember this. Every action we take, every choice we make, can either contribute to the problem or be part of the solution. So let's choose wisely, shall we? Okay, now that we discuss what's causing global warming, let's tackle what it means for us and the world around us. We're about to explore the impacts of global warming on weather patterns, biodiversity, and human societies. First off, global warming is like a supercharger for our weather. It intensifies weather patterns and makes extreme weather events more frequent and severe. We're talking hotter heat waves, longer droughts, more intense storms, and heavier rainfall. I mean, have you noticed how the weather just seems a bit off these days? Then there's the impact on biodiversity. A warmer world affects ecosystems and wildlife. Some species might find it harder to survive if their habitats change too much or too quickly. Others might actually spread and thrive, but this can disrupt ecosystems and lead to a loss of biodiversity. Not to mention, the melting ice affects polar bears and other Arctic animals who rely on sea ice for their survival. As for the oceans, they absorb most of the extra heat from global warming, which leads to sea level rise and ocean acidification. Sea level rise can lead to coastal flooding and erosion, while ocean acidification threatens coral reefs and shellfish. I mean, who doesn't love a good beach vacation or seafood dinner? And let's not forget about us humans. Global warming affects agriculture, health, and even economies. Changes in temperature and rainfall patterns can make it harder to grow crops in some regions. Heat waves can cause health problems, especially for the young, the elderly, and those with pre-existing conditions. And the cost of dealing with all these impacts. It's huge, and it's a burden that's often shouldered by the most vulnerable among us. So yeah, global warming isn't just about melting ice caps or polar bears. It's about the weather, our food, our health, our homes, and our wallets. But remember, while the situation is serious, it's not hopeless. Understanding these impacts is the first step towards taking action. So stay tuned as we dive into the scientific evidence behind global warming and discuss what we can do to help mitigate these effects. Let's delve into our next topic. Studying the scientific evidence and models that demonstrate the reality and urgency of global warming. You've probably heard the phrase, the science is clear when it comes to climate change. But what does that mean? Well, it means that decades of research from scientists around the world have given us a pretty clear picture of what's happening. One major piece of evidence is the rise in global temperatures. Since the late 19th century, the average surface temperature of the Earth has increased by about 1.18 degrees Celsius, mostly in the last 35 years. That might not sound like much, but even small changes in the average temperature can have big impacts on our climate. Another clear sign is the melting of ice caps, glaciers, and sea ice. You know, those pictures of shrinking glaciers you see in documentaries, they're not just for dramatic effect, they're real, measurable evidence of global warming. And then there's the rising sea levels. Warmer temperatures cause seawater to expand and ice to melt, both leading to a rise in sea levels. In the last century, the sea level has risen by around 16 to 21 centimeters. And of course, there's the increase in extreme weather events we talked about earlier. More heat waves, droughts, intense storms. These aren't just random occurrences. They're consistent with what we'd expect from a warming planet. Now, scientists use climate models to predict how these trends might continue in the future. These models take into account things like greenhouse gas emissions, solar radiation, and even volcanic activity. And they tell us that if we continue on our current path, well, let's just say it's a future we'd rather avoid. But as sobering as all this evidence is, it's also a call to action. It shows us that global warming is real, it's happening now, and it's urgent. But it also shows us that our actions can make a difference. Stay tuned for our last segment, where we'll discuss potential strategies and solutions to help slow down or even reverse the effects of global warming. Because while the problem is big, it's not insurmountable. We have the power to change the future. We just need to choose to use it. All right, let's dive into our final topic, learning about potential mitigation strategies and solutions to slow down or reverse the effects of global warming. Now, this is where we can turn the tide. While the scale of the problem can seem overwhelming, there are actually many ways we can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and limit global warming. Firstly, we can transition to renewable energy sources like solar, wind, and hydroelectric power. These sources produce electricity without releasing carbon dioxide.
Imagine that. Powering our lives without warming the planet.
Energy efficiency is another key strategy. This means doing more with less energy. Think energy efficient appliances, insulating homes to reduce heating and cooling needs, and improving fuel efficiency in vehicles. Then there's reforestation and afforestation. Remember how we said trees absorb carbon dioxide? Well, planting more trees can help absorb more of this greenhouse gas. It's like nature's own carbon capture technology. Changes in our diet can also make a difference. Raising livestock for meat contributes to methane emissions, so reducing our meat intake can help reduce these emissions. And finally, there's carbon capture and storage. This is a technology that can capture carbon dioxide from power plants and factories and store it underground. It's still in the early stages, but it could play a role in the future. At the end of the day, it's going to take a combination of all these strategies and probably more to tackle global warming. But the most important thing to remember is this: every action counts. Whether it's choosing renewable energy, planting a tree, or even just turning off the lights when you leave a room, every little bit helps. The challenge is big, but so is our potential for action. So let's get to work, shall we? Because the only thing hotter than the planet should be our determination to save it. See you in the next video.